Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures Daily Dose of Nature. Today's topic, an insider's journey into Yosemite, presented by NatHab Expedition Leader Justin Pitschmann. I'm your host, Rob Mess. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Take it away, Justin.
All right. Well, thank you, Rob, for that introduction. Really appreciate it. And I just want to say thank you to each of you joining me today for this. Really appreciate you showing up. And hopefully, for those of you wanting to, maybe book this trip in the future or, that have already booked this trip, I hope this is really informative for you. And actually, I hope it's informative for all of you, whether you've booked it or not, or whether you're thinking about it. Yeah, hopefully you'll learn a lot and I can answer some questions you have. So, I won't take any more time with introduction. Let's just get into it. So, my name is Justin Pitchman. I'm currently living in a small town called Oakhurst, which is about 12 miles from the gates of Yosemite. And I moved there about 5 years ago from Kansas, where I was born and raised. And there's nothing wrong with Kansas at all. Um, I think I did everything that there was to do in Kansas, and so I moved to the West Coast and fell in love with Yosemite and the Sierra Nevada, and I've been there ever since. I have a bachelor's degree in biology with an emphasis in ecological sciences. I'm also a multi-published scientific author, and yeah, spent some time on the coast of Florida actually studying coral reef ecosystems and ecology. So big fan of the biologies and the ecologies, and I integrate a lot of that into how I guide, but I'm also just a big fan of being outdoors and being in nature. So it's a good time. Just to give you a sense of what we're going to be talking about, these are two photos that I've taken of Yosemite. Couple things I want to say is one, most of the photos in this slideshow are from me taken on tours. That way you can actually understand that these are things that we're going to be seeing and not just some, photoshopped picture taken off of the internet. Additionally, I put these on here because when you think of Yosemite, I want you to think of grandeur. So on the left, we have Yosemite Falls, which if you go on the trip, we'll see plenty of times. It's the tallest waterfall in the lower 48. On the right is El Capitan. That is the largest exposed granite rock in the world, or granite monolith. Yosemite also has the largest trees in the world. So there's a lot of grandeur in Yosemite, and I just want to kind of get you ready for that. Also, just to give you a kind of an orientation of where we'll be on the trip before we get into more details. On this left photo here, we have the city of Fresno right below that blue star. That's a city of about 500,000, and that's where you will fly into and where we will pick you up from the airport. And then right up here is this little green spot. That's Yosemite. And it's blown up over here with a little bit more detail. Yosemite is about 750,000 square acres, which is just about the size of Rhode Island. So it's a lot to see. 95% of it is designated as wilderness, meaning there's not roads through it, but we'll still be able to see a lot. Also, over on this side, um, I've got some numbers. These are the nights where we will be spending, or these are the nights that we're going to be spending on the trip. So nights 1 through 2 will be right outside the South Gate. Nights 3 through 5 will be in Yosemite Valley. That's this little rectangle here. Night 6, we will be on the east entrance right outside of the park. And then night 7, we will be kind of on the southwest entrance of the park. So we do a lot of driving on this trip just to try to see as much of it as possible. But we try to balance that out with, not moving you every single night and having 2 nights in a row and then 3 nights in a row. So we do our best to balance, but there's a lot to see here and a lot worth seeing, and we're going to do our best to show you as much as we can. All right, so now that you kind of know where we're going, I wanted to kind of tell you what to pack before I get into the more day to day. So day temperatures in Yosemite during the summer can range from 65 to 95 degrees during the day and 50 to 65 degrees at night. Part of this is because Yosemite has an elevation at its lowest point from about 1,800 feet at its highest point to over 13,000. And so it's a very large elevation change, and climate and temperature changes with elevation. On the trip, we're going to be staying between 3,000 feet and 10,000 feet. So that's still 7,000 feet of elevation change that we're going to be experiencing. So basically, be ready to experience average temperatures from about 50 in the morning when you wake up on some mornings to about 95 during the day while we're hiking. Because of this, one of the most important things to pack is layers. I always tell my guests, dress like an onion. So a lot of thin layers is going to really be key. So light hiking pants, hiking shorts, breathable shirts, a lightweight rain jacket or poncho. Definitely make sure to bring this one. A lot of people think like, oh, it's a summer, I won't need it. But the weather in Yosemite is really volatile and can change in a moment's notice, especially with all this elevation change. Um, Also, if you're going to bring a poncho, I would suggest not getting one of those single-use ones. We just try to avoid those, and they generally don't work that well. But you can get a really lightweight poncho that is multi-use. That's about the size of a softball that you can just keep in your pack. But that's a really important piece of gear I wanted to touch on. Yeah, lightweight, long sleeve pullover, maybe a mid-weight fleece, and a light down jacket. As far as, being comfortable in any temperature, you know yourself the best. You know what you need. So, write down these temperature ranges and do what's best for you. But as far as layers, that's what I recommend bringing. And then, of course, the day before, every day of the trip, I'll go through what we expect the weather to be the next day and how I would recommend packing for that or dressing for that. In addition, some sturdy, comfortable hiking shoes or light boots are really good to have. I like I have like a light waterproof, kind of like mid ankle boot that I really like. Gives me a little bit of ankle support. But I'll also do a lot of the hiking. You can actually see I'm in tennis shoes in this photo here on the right. But whatever shoes you bring, just make sure they're broken in beforehand. Walk, do a few trips in them, do a couple hikes in them, because blisters during a trip are the last thing you want to deal with. And also make sure you bring a hat. We go through a lot of forests, but we also have a lot of really exposed areas, and just protecting yourself from the sun at these really high elevations is going to be really important. I put these two photos on because these two photos are taken one day apart on the trip. These are different groups that I was leading, but still one day apart. So we have a morning where we go and we walk through a giant sequoia forest. That's us on the left underneath Grizzly Giant, a 3,700-year-old sequoia. And that morning is oftentimes cooler. It's oftentimes a little overcast. We're walking through a big shaded forest, so you can see everyone's dressed up a little warmer with jackets and long pants. But the very next day, we go up a couple thousand feet in elevation, and we're doing some really um, exposed hikes, at least exposed to the sun. And so you can see everyone over here is lighter dressed. So just make sure you bring enough layers to be comfortable in both conditions. As far as gear goes, we ask that you pack in a soft-sided duffel bag. That just really helps us as we're transporting your gear from place to place. In addition to that, we also ask that you bring a day pack because most of the time you are going to be separated from your checked bag during the day. So we ask that you bring that day pack. So anything that you need during the day, like medications or your rain jacket or your water, you have with you. Could be a good idea to bring a headlamp. We do a couple evening activities. Sunglasses are a must here. Sunscreen, we're pretty exposed. Bugs generally aren't terrible here, but they are present. And so we'll have some bug spray, but I would also recommend just having a little personal one that you can always, have on you. And most importantly, water bottles or a water bladder that can carry 2 liters. So that sounds like a lot of water, but this is a really hiking intensive trip and it can get really warm and you're at pretty high elevation. And so all of that stuff will dry you out really quickly. And so we just want to make sure that you have enough water on you always and are staying hydrated and healthy and all of that. As far as gear, what we provide, so we have binoculars for everyone that we have in the van. You can also carry those around with you in your backpack as we go and hike. We provide spotting scopes with tripods for looking at wildlife or maybe even climbers if we get the opportunity. It's funny on this trip, we actually we tend to spend more time looking at climbers through the spotting scope than I think anything else. They always put on a good show for us. And then trekking poles. Like I said, we're going to do a lot of hiking on this trip, so we provide trekking poles. They're adjustable. They can fit any length, any height. Trekking poles are just kind of difficult to travel with. They don't really fit in checked luggage that well, and they're not allowed in your carry-on items. So, um, yeah, if you got a pair that you really like and you're confident in traveling with them, by all means bring them. But otherwise, we've got a good pair for you. All right. So now that you know where we're going and how to pack for it, I'll tell you a little bit about the trip and the itinerary. So you're going to arrive in the Fresno airport. It's a pretty small airport with about 20 terminals, so pretty easy to find your way around inside of it. It actually has this really cool display of life-size giant sequoias, but we're going to go see the real thing. So, but it's pretty cool to just get a taste of what you're in for. When you arrive at the airport, if you arrive on day one, we will pick you up, we being me or another EL, and we'll be in contact with you to let you know what time we'll be picking you up. And we're going to pick you up in one of the NatHab vans, which is going to look something like this right here. It's going to be a big white Mercedes Sprinter. It's going to be branded. We're going to be branded. So if you see that, come on up to us. An important note, a thing I'll add, um, if you see us, come up and say hi because we don't know what you look like. And I promise we're friendly. So if you see us waiting next to the van or waiting in the airport, all branded up, we're waiting for you and we're really happy you're here. As long as we're talking about transportation on this trip, we are mostly just going to be in our vans as far as transportation. The one exception to that is we do have an early morning canoe ride on Mono Lake on day six, or day seven. I'm sorry, day seven. Other than that, those are the only two modes of transportation we'll be taking. There's a slight chance that we might use a shuttle, but we haven't thus far, and it's unlikely that we will. So to get into the accommodations in the trip itinerary a little bit, our first and second night, we're going to be staying at Tenaya Lodge in a little town called Fish Camp. The town itself has a population of 200, and it's nestled right in the forest. And I think it's just a great way to start the trip because you really get a taste of what to expect. Just huge trees all around you, some mountains, and that is just a couple miles outside the south entrance of the park. So we're just right there ready to get into it. This is a really nice place, very much a resort feel, as you might be able to tell from the photo. It's got an indoor and outdoor hot tub, indoor outdoor pool. It has a spa, it has a gym, a really nice, huge lobby with a fireplace, a couple restaurants in it. Yeah, just a great way to start the trip. And our first night, this is where we'll have our welcome dinner as well. On day one, we'll go into the Mariposa Grove of giant sequoias. We'll do a light hike around there. Just walk in amongst the biggest trees in the world. It's pretty cool. From there, we'll drive just a little bit farther and go to a historic pioneer village that has a lot of the historic buildings from the park. And then after that, we'll do a short meadow loop walk around the outskirts of a meadow in a part of Yosemite called Wawona. Then we'll head back here to Tenaya Lodge. On the second day, we pack up and we start making our way into the center of the park, into Yosemite Valley. We do a pretty nice hike that morning. We go to a beautiful outlook called Glacier Point, where you can just see for miles and any direction. You can see a good look at a couple waterfalls. We'll do a good hike. We'll get you on the trail. We'll get a good lunch in you, and then after you're good and exhausted, we get you back in the vans and drive you to our hotel with a couple of scenic stops along the way. That hotel that we're going to be going to is the Ahwahnee Hotel, and this is my personal favorite place that we stay in the trip. They're all good, but um, This hotel was built in 1926 and 27, and it's a beautiful example of what they call parkitecture. So they used a lot of local materials to build it so it blends in. And you are just right in the middle of Yosemite Valley with 3,000-foot tall cliffs on either side of you. You can see waterfalls, you can see Yosemite Falls from this. And it's just a great place, very central, lots of hiking trails around it. And that's one of the reasons why we use it is because it cuts down on a lot of the driving that we have to do on these days. And for the most part, we don't have to do much driving. We just can take off on different trails straight from our hotel, and that cuts down on some of the time we have you in the van. It has a beautiful, huge dining room, which we'll have some of our meals in. Um, just very very much if you've been in some of the other lodges like the Grand Canyon lodges or Zion, it very much has that feel as well. But yeah, it's a real treat to be in here. It hasn't been open for the last like year and a half because they've been renovating it, but it's open for us, and it's a really good time. So on these days, we're going to be doing a lot of hiking. We've got, like I said, trails straight from the hotel. We go and we hike up close to a waterfall a couple times with a couple different waterfalls. We go to a place called Mirror Lake. We also have a fantastic guided walk in the morning from the Yosemite Conservancy, and I would yeah, really recommend not missing that one. They're incredibly knowledgeable about just pretty much everything about the park, and it's one of my favorite things to go on. So yeah, we'll be staying here nights 3 through 5. After that, we're going to make our way. If you remember that map I showed you, we're going to make our way all the way to the east side of the park, and we're going to stay right outside of it in a tiny, tiny town called Leaveney, which is right on the edge of a huge salt lake called Mono Lake, and you can actually see the lake from the hotel. So if you were standing in this, in this lawn right here, and you were looking out this direction, you would see this lake, and it's got a couple volcanic islands on it. This is also where we are going to do our early morning kayak or canoe the next morning. And it has, I'll show you a little closer, but it has all these beautiful limestone formations in it called tufas. I guarantee you, even if you're not into saltwater lakes that much, after this kayak ride, you're gonna be like, oh, I had no idea salt lakes could be so cool. Because we go on it with some members of the Mono Lake Conservancy, and they're also incredibly knowledgeable and passionate, and yeah, everyone always gets something out of it. So it's a fantastic part of the trip. Um, After that, we start heading back all the way across the park, going from east to west, and we stay outside um, the west gate of the park in El Portal. And so for our final night, we've got a pretty good hotel booked. That's all of these right here. This is the Merced River, and we get your rooms. We try to get your rooms right here that have a deck that looks out on the Merced River. Um, this is also where we do our farewell dinner. So it's just everything all nice in one place, nestled in this beautiful little valley. On our way here, we also stop a couple times in Tuolumne Meadows, which is my personal favorite spot in the park, and do some hikes there. It has far fewer people than the rest of the park and is more open and expansive. There's no bad parts of the park in my opinion, but um, yeah, Tuolumne Meadows is my favorite. So we do some of that. We get you here and we tuck you in for your last night. And then the next day, we're going to take you to the airport as well. So for the meals on this trip, we have kind of a mixture of fine dining experiences and outdoor field meals and some in between. So if you remember the photo of the Ahwahnee dining room I showed you, this is just another picture of that. You don't need to bring a suit or a tie or anything like that to eat here, but just something clean and a little bit nicer, button up or a polo or a dress, but you don't even have to do that. Only if you want to. They'll accept us as we are. Um, we also have a couple excellent field meals that we have planned. This top one is on day 6 when we are driving to the east side of the park. We stop at this beautiful mountain lake called Tenaya Lake. It's at about 8,000 feet. Um, and it's on, yeah, not quite white sand beaches, but pretty nice sand beaches. We swim in it if you want. I pretty much always take a dip. It's at 8,000 feet, so the water is a little chilly, but oh, it'll wake you up and it'll make you feel alive. And I will pressure you in a friendly way when we're there to take a dip. But we do one, our FOS sets up a meal for us there, and we'll just, sit on blankets on the beach and just enjoy the view. Another one we do just a few days before that is in Yosemite Valley. That's this lower one here. Um, we have a great outdoor picnic area that we like to use, and we get you beer and wine and all the fixings and all of that. And that's actually the picnic area is right over here. But what we do immediately afterwards is we get you some chocolates, a glass of wine, whatever you want. We have these chairs set up for you, and we watch the sunset on Half Dome right here. And that's just one of my favorite traditions on this trip. And a lot of times too, we'll get some climbers climbing right over here on Royal Arches. So that's we've got a spotting scope set up here, and that's what we're looking at there. So yeah, variety of dining experiences, but don't worry about them too much. I'm sure for those of you that have been on a trip, you're never going to go hungry on a NatHab trip, and this Yosemite tour is no exception to that at all. Activities. You probably picked it up at this point, but we're going to be doing a lot of hiking on this trip. That is the central activity. This trip is labeled as moderate to difficult. We do try to split groups up into two a lot of times. If there's a group that wants to do an easier hike and a group that wants to do a more difficult hike, we can accommodate that, and we do that most trips. Some of the more difficult hikes that we have, well, I suppose from easy to difficult, our hikes can range from about 200 feet of elevation gain to about 800 feet of elevation gain over a span of 2 to 7.5 miles. Some of this is really exposed. Some of it gets really, really steep. Um, a lot of it, some of it is going to be paved pathways. Some of it is not going to be paved pathways, and it's going to be an actual trail where you're having to step over large rocks and roots and that sort of thing. So just be prepared for that when you're here. Um, this is on the left. This is a group of us on top of Sentinel Dome, looking out at, well, actually, we're just about to get on the top of Sentinel Dome. We're not quite there, but that's Yosemite Fall right there. And then over here on the right, this is also Yosemite Fall, but this is a different group, and we're at a viewpoint. So you can see we travel a long distance. We don't hike from one area to the other, but um, yeah, we do a lot of hiking. Um, this is us on that walk on the left with the Conservancy. They take us through a Miwok village, which is one of the indigenous tribes in the area. This is us in one of their structures that they have recreated. Um, and then over here, this is us actually outside of the park in the Lee Vining area doing a hike called Lundy Canyon. And then finally, this is on the left here. We got us doing the canoe tour in Mono Lake. These are some of the tufas that we get to go right up to. Oftentimes, there's osprey that actually nest on top of them, and it's just a really cool experience. We get to see fledglings sometimes, and even see them bringing them fish. And then on the right, this is another hike in the Tuolumne Meadows area, and all of us are taking a photo with this boulder. And this is actually a glacial radical, so it's a boulder that's been left on top of a granite dome. And there's a lot of evidence of glaciation on this hike. If you like geology or glaciers or anything like that, you're really gonna like this trip. You're gonna like it no matter what, but you're especially gonna nerd out with me on all the effects of glaciation and the different geological processes that have formed this place. But yeah, we're doing a lot of hiking, so be prepared for that. Know your skill levels, know what you're comfortable with. Like I said, we usually break up into not always, but sometimes we'll break up into a couple groups and do an easier hike or a more difficult hike. Um, Also, every activity is optional, so do what's best for you. That's always what I tell my guests. I say, hey, this is your trip, this is your vacation. Um, don't feel bad if you need to take a morning to just enjoy, sitting outside of the hotel and taking in Half Dome or sitting under the trees or watching the deer or whatever. Um, but yeah, this is marketed as a more difficult trip. So just wanted to prepare you for that. Some of the wildlife we can hope to see. There are no grizzlies in California, but we do have black bears within the park. We don't always see them. We see them sometimes. It just depends. Unfortunately, they're not on our payroll, so it's difficult to get them to do what we want. But we run into them from time to time, and when we do have an encounter, we're really fortunate to have it. Below, this is a mule deer in Ahwahnee Meadow. We usually see a lot of those, and they usually give us a pretty good show as well. We try to get them at sunset, but it doesn't always happen. On the right, this is one of those tufa formations that I was talking about in Mono Lake, and that's an osprey taking off from one. And we get a chance to see a lot of birds: ospreys, eagles, jays, vultures. There's a lot of birds in this area. Of course, coyotes, raccoons, bobcats. There's a lot of different stuff we can see. In addition to animals, there are a tremendous amount of plant species in Yosemite. So I was talking about the elevation change, 1,800 feet to over 13,000. With so much elevation change in such a small area, there's a lot of what they call biotic zones or life zones, and they are squished very, very close together. And because the climate is different in each one of those zones, you get a lot of different species of plants. And so I always, tell people when you come on this tour, you got to have your eyes open because if you're on your phone for 20 minutes and you look up, the scenery is most likely going to be completely different. But yeah, there's a tremendous amount of plant and species here, especially trees. I love trees. I love evergreens. To give you an idea, I'm actually in Yellowstone right now working on a tour. Yellowstone is 2.2 million acres, and it only has six types of conifer trees, cone-bearing trees, evergreen trees. Yosemite is much smaller, 750,000 acres, and they have 19 different types of conifers. So this is me here on the right holding a sugar pine cone. Sugar pines are the tallest pine species, and they have the largest cones in the world. And we'll definitely get a chance to see some of them. Um, this is a wallflower here on the left. So if you've ever heard, the term wallflower, apparently this is where they get it from. I don't really know why, but it's a beautiful flower. And then these kind of top two photos are just some flowers hopefully we'll see in the Tuolumne Meadows area. The pass is open now. It just opened a few days ago. There's still snow melt, so hopefully it'll still be have enough precipitation up there to show us some good wildflowers. And the final type of wildlife I wanted to talk about are the people. Yosemite is one of the most popular national parks in the U.S. It gets over 4 million visitors every year. And we are some of those. And that's what I like to remind guests because, it's easy to get frustrated sometimes with crowds, but we're all just doing the same thing. We just want to be there and see the beauty and take it in. So I just want to prepare you for that. There are going to be some times where we're going to stop at this stop specifically. This is called Tunnel View. It's one of the most famous views in the park, and there's going to be people there. It's just the way it is. But we also work really hard to get you away from the crowds. That's why we go on some early morning hikes, and that's why we get you up to Tuolumne Meadows in the east side of the park, where there's not nearly as many people. A lot of people will just come see the valley for a day and leave and not explore the rest of the park. So we do try to mitigate that, and but just wanted to set your expectations. And that is all that I have to say right now. I'm gonna turn it back over to Rob for questions, and yeah, we'll get going on that.
All right. Thank you so much, Justin. Now, before we start in with some question and answers, I'd like to remind everyone that you can submit your questions via the question field in your control panel. All right, let's get to some questions. So now, when you get a pair of binoculars, are we going to have enough for everybody on the trip?
We will, yes. Everyone, we have enough. Everyone will have their own personal pair of binoculars that they can carry with them throughout the trip, as long as we just get them back before you get back on the plane.
Great. So you'll give us the binoculars and the poles, and we'll be off and running. Sounds
Exactly.
excellent. Excellent. Um, is this a good trip for birders?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, if you're into birds, this is a fantastic trip. That's probably the most common form of wildlife that we see, of animal wildlife that we see on this trip. Yeah, anything, like I said, from jays to towhees to hummingbirds. We get a lot of hawks, osprey, eagles, um, thrushes, chickadees. Yeah, you name it. Like I said, all those biotic zones, there are birds that occupy each one of those niches. And yeah, so if you enjoy birds, I would say this is a good trip for you.
How about
We don't,
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
sorry, let me add on to that. We don't do any like birding specific activities on this trip, but we see a lot of birds as we're going.
Great, thank you so much. How about the great gray owl? Will we have any chance to see one of those?
Just to be realistic, I'd say it's really unlikely. I've never seen one. I've done, oh, I don't know, several hundred trips into Yosemite, and I have never seen one. However, that doesn't mean it's impossible. But yeah, just to be realistic with you, I'd say it's unlikely we're gonna run into one.
Great, thank you. We appreciate that. So let's talk about the hiking. How difficult are the hikes?
It's a good question. Difficult is relative. I can give you the specs, and you do with that what you will. Everyone knows their own limitations and their own abilities. Um, every hike that we do is going to be at least starting at 4,000 feet of elevation. So if you're coming from a low elevation state, um, it's probably going to be a little hard. And at most, we're going to get up to hiking around 8,000 feet of elevation. So that in and of itself will already be a challenge just because there's less oxygen. We're never going to do anything unsafe. We're not going to take you up on top of Half Dome where you have to hold on to the cables and, like, be worried about your life. But like the Sentinel Dome hike, that one towards the end, we have a really steep, maybe 200 yards, maybe 150 yards, where you've got to climb up this dome, this big granite dome. But you can do it on 2 feet. You don't have to, have 3 points of contact or anything like that. Um, there's another hike called the Vernal Falls hike. Depending on how much of it you do, sometimes we'll just do about 2 miles. Sometimes we'll do, the whole thing closer to 4 miles. That is a really steep hike as well. It's mostly paved, but there on that one there can be some slippery steps as well. So I would say being to do the more difficult hikes that we do on this trip, being sure-footed is a must. Again, we're not going to put you in dangerous situations. We're not going to put you balancing on the edge of a cliff or anything like that, or any place where if you trip and fall, you're going to fall over. We're not gonna do that to you. Um, and we do have some easier hikes. Some ones like when we go to Mirror Lake, that is 2 miles and it is paved pretty much the whole way. And there's, maybe 100 feet of elevation gain on it. Um, the Wawona Meadow Loop, that one is not paved, but it's flat and it's about 2 miles as well. Um, and there's the Valley Loop Trail that we go on and we spend some time on. That one is mostly flat and paved. Um, so like I said, we try to accommodate different skill levels, but I don't know. Does that answer it pretty well?
I think you covered a lot of the bases there, Justin. Thank you. Can I
Mhm.
ask you one other question related to that? Do
Yeah.
you have any recommendations for training? How would I train for a trip like this?
Yeah, a stair stepper. Well, I'll give you some gym ones first. If you go to your gym, a stair stepper or an elliptical that you can put on an incline is really good. Same if you can do that with a treadmill. I'd definitely say get used to walking uphill, because we're gonna hit some inclines. If you really want to go for it, if you're really all about it, you can get an elevation mask, which restricts your flow of oxygen. Personally, like I know we're not going to be doing anything that intense, but if you just want to do it for fun and a chance to see what it's like, you can get one of those. But cardio, yeah, do some cardio, and especially get used to walking uphill, whether that's on an elevated, um, yeah, treadmill or elliptical. Like I said, stair stepper is great. If you don't want to go to the gym, should do a walk around your neighborhood. A few times a week. Get used to walking 3-ish miles. And if you're at low elevation, maybe do a little more than that, just so you're used to it. But cardio, getting your cardio up, and yeah, your aerobic up is really going to help that. So um, yeah, no need to hit the weights super hard or power lift, but just get used to walking uphill and walking pretty much every day, at least 2 to 3 miles.
Great. Thank you so much for that advice. Will we be doing any off-trail hiking to try to get away from those large groups of people?
Not really off trail hiking. We not every trail that we will be doing is going to be like paved and really popular. Like this photo that you can see right now, this is in Tuolumne Meadows, and some of our hikes are going to kind of look like that. Um, but we're not going to get off designated trails too much, but we're going to take you to trails that are lesser known and that there aren't going to be as many people on them. I guarantee not every hike that we take you on, you're going to be bumping into people the whole time. There might be a couple like that, but we try to also do a good number of more secluded hikes as well. Tuolumne Meadows is going to be probably the best area for that.
So, is there going to be an opportunity for us to take a dip in someplace? And how cold is the water if we choose to do that?
Yes, yeah, that's a great question. There will be a couple opportunities. The first one is going to be in the valley. We go and we take some time just hanging out on the beach of the Merced River, which is the main river that runs through Yosemite. As long as the water levels aren't too high and it's safe, sometimes earlier in the season, the river is still running too fast here and it's not safe for us to get in. But as long as they don't have like a restriction on it, it's a beautiful river to wade in. It's right underneath El Capitan, this huge 3,000 foot tall granite cliff, and the water's pretty icy. The water is, I mean, there's not, it's not floating chunks of ice in it or anything, but it's direct snow melt. So I'd say probably around 45 to 50 degree water, 45, 55 degree water. Um, but even if we don't do that one, if the water's too high, when we're heading up through Tuolumne Meadows and we stop at Tenaya Lake to do that picnic lunch, a photo of all of us sitting on the beach, that is a really nice, calm lake with a really shallow entry. Um, and that water is going to be, even though it's much higher elevation because it's not running and because it's shallower, it's actually about the same temperature. And I'll probably get in there as well. So, um, yeah, there won't be an opportunity to get in the Salt Lake, Mono Lake, but that's probably for the best. It's like over 3 times saltier than the ocean, and it kind of burns your skin a little bit. So I've swam in it before, and I'll probably only do it once. But yeah, those first two options are much more refreshing and much better.
Should I bring my own towel then?
Yes, if you are really intent on swimming, I'd say like yeah, bring a little light pack towel because that's generally not something we provide. And the swimming on this trip is it's kind of like a side mission. It's one of those things where yeah, if you want to do it, like go for it. That's not the reason we're there, but I have a hard time not jumping in myself. Um, so yeah, if you're intent on it, like a nice light travel towel would be a good thing to pack.
Do the waterfalls ever dry up at some point in the summer?
They do. They do. So the later on in the summer we go, the greater chance they have of drying up. It just depends on how much precipitation we have got in the winter and how much we continue to get over the summer. We've had a really good winter just this last winter. It was we were at like I think 110% snowpack, so right around normal. But it is possible the later trips they get into August, if it's a very hot and dry summer, a lot of the waterfalls can dry up. Vernal Falls, which we go to, is one of the only ones that doesn't dry up, but it will still get like pretty small. So, but generally that only happens in the later months of this trip, like August, maybe late July if it's an exceptionally dry year.
And what months do the trips run from?
Oh yeah, so the trips start in July. First week of July is when we start running trips, and they run through about mid-September.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
How might inclement weather affect these trips?
We've had it happen. Unfortunately, yeah, like the weather isn't on our payroll either, as much as we'd like it to be. We've had some days with really dense, heavy fog. The nice thing is that Yosemite, especially in Yosemite Valley, they have some really good indoor activities. They've got a great indoor movie theater and visitor center. They have a really well done Indigenous People Center, and they'll have people there, like making, they'll have Indigenous people there, making basketry or making, like arrowheads, stuff like that. They have a little outdoor, like village that you can walk around. There's also the Ansel Adams Gallery right there where we'll be staying in the valley with some of his original pieces as well as other local artists. There's some good gift shops. Um, the Ahwahnee itself is just a beautiful, huge hotel with um, lounge seating just in the main area. So we deal with it. We find things to do. We've had to do it before, but the thing is even if it's bad weather, it's usually pretty sporadic, meaning it comes and it goes. It doesn't stay around for days and days at a time. Um, and if it's not too bad, we're gonna hike in it. I'm sure some of you have heard the saying, "There's no such thing as bad weather, just bad gear." So as long as it's not, lightning on us or absolutely downpouring, if it's like a light drizzle and we're not going too far and it's safe, we'll still get out in it.
Is there a dress code for dinner at the lodge?
At the Ahwahnee, there used to be years ago, but that has since been lifted. Yeah, I've seen people in there wearing just what I'm wearing right now, hat and a t-shirt. So there's not an official dress code. If it would make you feel more comfortable, you certainly can dress up a little bit, but it's not a requirement. Some people will, some people won't.
Will there be an opportunity to do laundry at any point on the trip?
Yes, the Ahwahnee Hotel has that's a great opportunity to do laundry. It's right in the middle. We're there for 3 nights, and their room service has great laundry, usually same day, but at least at most 24 hours. And they got a laundry bag, so you can just stuff everything in it. Call the front desk, they'll come pick it up and return it to you folded.
Great, thank you so much for that. So let's talk about footwear for a second. Is there a specific type of boot that you could recommend for us, or something that you think would be best for our feet?
Um, I can tell you what I use. It's tough because everyone's feet are different. I have very wide feet, and so I there's a hiking boot that I like called Keens, Keen. They're very lightweight, they're waterproof, they're breathable. Like I said, mine are mids, which I really enjoy. In fact, here we go. These are mine. I really appreciate them. They work really well. But again, it's important to try them out for yourself. I know a lot of people really swear by Ultras or Solomons. Those are a brand that I see a lot from people that hike many miles and are really comfortable. What I would recommend doing is going down to your local whether it's REI or whatever you have, and trying on some shoes in person and just feeling what fits you best. Your feet tend to swell a little bit too when you hike, so don't get them super tight. Leave just a little bit of room, but not too much because if there's too much room, then your feet will rub and blister. So just get a good fitting shoe that's comfortable and yeah, go to your outdoor footwear store and try on a few in person and that's how I found which ones I really liked. But yeah, Keens are great. Ultras are great if you do hiking shoes over hiking boots. Some people really like that. Um, yeah, Solomon's, yeah, that sort of stuff. But like if you come with a pair of Under Armour sneakers, you're also probably gonna be fine. I've hiked in them many of times. We're not bushwhacking. Uh, as long as they've got good grip on them, then you're gonna be okay.
Great. Thanks for that advice. We do appreciate it. So let's talk about camera gear for just a second. as a photographer. Do you have any recommendations for us about what to bring as far as lenses? Should we bring a tripod?
Yeah, I'm a really avid photographer, and taking photos in Yosemite is actually one of my favorite things to do. So I would say, as far as lenses go, um, a lot of people have the all-in-one lenses at this point that can go really wide angle to really close up. If you're shooting prime lenses, or if you like to bring multiple, I usually go with a standard three. The three I always carry with me are a wide angle lens, so I have a 28 millimeter, but you can go, wider than that if you like. I have a 50 millimeter, the nifty 50 works for a lot of shots. And then I have a longer lens, either a 130 or like a 200 that I carry with me. Um, that can be really heavy. And so, yeah, if you're going to bring one, I'd say a 50 can do really great. But again, you know yourself, if you're a really avid birder, you're going to want to have a longer lens. Um, like I said, a lot of these cameras now have really great all-in-one, like 20 to 400 lenses. If you like using those and you're happy with the quality they produce, that would be a fantastic choice because they're lighter. We're going to be hiking a lot, and that way you're not stopping and fumbling through your pack and trying to find which lens is good for the moment. So a great all-in-one lens would work really well, but at least make sure that you've got, you know, a wide angle and maybe one other lens that's good for you. Because we're going to be doing a lot of landscape shots. If you're into photography, there's uh uh yeah, multitude of opportunities of landscape photos.
What about stargazing? Are we going to have the opportunity maybe to take some photos at night?
Yeah, yes. On your own, we don't have a specific stargazing event or like a star walk or anything like that. But especially when we're staying at either the first lodge, the Tenaya Lodge, or the Ahwahnee, really all of them are great for it. Um, yeah, there's phenomenal stars in the Sierra Nevada. It's very clean air, it's very clear air. And so the Ahwahnee is really nice because you can walk right out and you can be just in the middle of Yosemite Valley. You can still see the hotel, so you don't have to worry about getting lost. And they have lawns right outside, kind of all surrounding the hotel. So we can get you we usually have blankets as well, so we can get you a blanket. And I've had guests do that a lot after dinner, after we, give you the plan for the next day, and we dismiss you. People will wait a little bit and go out and do it. Now it does, because it's summer, like peak darkness isn't probably going to be till around like 2 or 3 a.m. So you got to be committed for it. But even if you're not willing to stay up that late, you can still get a really good look at stars. Um, I love astrophotography. I do a lot of it as well. This would be a good place for it again if you're willing to lose the sleep, and you want to bring like a nice compact tripod that travels well. That's not something that we generally provide on our trips.
Great. Thank you, Justin. So
Mhm.
I've got a couple of questions about ticks and snakes. Are those things that we need to be concerned about?
I'd say you need to be aware of them, but not overly concerned. Ticks happen occasionally. We do have deer in the park, and ticks like deer. But I personally have never found one on myself in all of my trips to Yosemite. I think I've had one guest find one. Um, so they are around, and I think they might like certain people more than others, maybe not, but it's not a big problem that I've known about on my trips. Um, there are rattlesnakes within Yosemite, and I have seen one once, but it was on tour. Nothing happened. No one was hurt. We just appreciated it and continued to walk. Um, but that's why we always have one leader at the front watching out, and one leader at the back. So yeah, both those things exist. They've never been like problematic or frequent, but they are there in the park.
Great. Thank you. What about large animals like bobcats or bears? Are we going to have to be particularly worried about those? And are we going to have opportunities to view them?
As far as the worried part goes, no. So we don't have any grizzly bears. We have black bears, and black bears are a lot less aggressive than grizzly bears. They're scared of you. Um, And I've never had to shoo one away ever from a group. It's always done it by its own. It's seen us and it's walked away. Um, Same thing with bobcats. Bobcats are pretty secretive. They're probably harder to see than in fact, they're definitely harder to see in this area than black bears, but I have seen them before. Um, and so some of these animals, especially in the valley, in Yosemite Valley, are kind of habituated to human disturbance. And so sometimes they'll get a little closer to you. We'll never let them get that close. With any carnivore, we try to keep about 100-yard distance between us and them. And as far as our will we have opportunities to see them? We will have the best opportunities that we can kind of give you for this trip. It's never a guarantee. I can tell you right now, you're not going to see as much wildlife as you would in Yellowstone. It's just not as prolific in this area. And also, like I said, 95% of this park is wilderness, and so it doesn't have a lot of roads through it. So we only have the one areas that we can go through. But it does happen, and sometimes it doesn't happen. That's the most realistic um, thing I can say. So I'm sorry it's not more cut and dry, but that's just the reality of this park and the animals within it.
Great, thank you. So can you let us know what we are looking at right now? Do we know what peak that is?
This is a peek through Tuolumne Meadows. This is right by Tioga Lake. I actually don't know the name of this specific one, but we will pass right by it, and it's got the alpenglow on it. So if you wanna, it's right near Tioga Lake though. So if you're wanting to see about where it is on the map, it's gonna be the peak. What's that gonna be? The peak east of Tioga Lake, which is just outside the park boundary. But we're gonna drive right by it. And I was there doing some solo camping this last summer, and the alpenglow hit it just perfectly, and I couldn't help but take a photo of it.
Well, it's a great shot. And so thank you so much for sharing it with us.
Of course, yeah.
Unfortunately, that's going to be the last question that we do have for today, Justin. So I'd like to throw it back to you for any closing comments you may have for us.
Um, well, I hope this has inspired you to come and see it. This is my favorite place in the world. I did move my whole life just to be close to it. So it's a really beautiful spot. Um, just like a lot of other national parks, there's nothing else quite like it, and you got to see it to experience it. But I hope that I have inspired you to, if you were thinking about taking the trip, to maybe pull that trigger. And if you are already taking it, I hope I've just made you more excited for it. Um, it's my favorite place to show people around. It's my favorite thing to do. I'm so fortunate that I get to do it for a job. And for those of you coming to see me this season, I really look forward to it.
Justin, thank you so much for taking the time to share this presentation with us today. And I'd also like to thank everyone who tuned in today. Now, if you are interested in information on how you can travel with NatHab, please give us a call at the number on your screen, or you could send us an email at info@nathab.com. Our adventure specialists are happy to help you out. Join us tomorrow for our next Daily Dose of Nature. You can check out this week's lineup, including registration links, on our website at nathab.com/webinars. We did record today's presentation, and we will have the replay available on our website soon. With that, I will conclude the webinar. Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you next time.